I'm now going to take you through 15 tips to improve first call resolution in your contact centers. Really speaking, the very first thing that you need to do is, if you want to improve first call resolution, is to start measuring what your first call resolution rates are. You manage what you measure, and measuring is really quite key to getting started. One of the first things also to look at is to understand, why did the customer call in the first place? According to Stephen Parry, who's an organizational transformation and business improvement consultant, as much as 50 to 70% of incoming customer contacts may be generated by a failure within systems and products. And to eliminate these, organizations must work backwards to correct the root cause of problems and develop methods to overcome them. To understand why the customer is calling, there's a couple of routes you can take. My favorite is to start listening to calls yourself and start to identify from those calls what's going on. If you can, get a sample of calls burnt onto CD or onto MP3 player, and just start listening to those calls on the way home, and that will give you some idea of why customers calling. You might be a bit hit and miss. But the other favourite I've got is to ask your frontline advisors. The agents on the phone, generally speaking, have a very good idea of what's going wrong, and would really absolutely love to get involved in helping out. You can then set up a customer champion team where you get your frontline agents to join a task force. In many organizations, getting people to join a task force is not difficult to do. People get a chance to get off the phones and to help improve the overall organization. So those are some things to get going. In first call resolution projects I've seen, there have been a couple of common factors that come in overall. The first is a lack of product knowledge, and this is the one that really does quite amaze me, because it's probably one of the easiest areas in the contact center to fix. All too often we put people through an induction program, and that's probably when their product knowledge ends. And we fix gaps in product knowledge typically by getting supervisors to act as or team leaders to act as a first line help desk. So I think if you want to improve first call resolution, product knowledge is one of the areas where I would start with. A little bit more difficult overall is to start fixing broken processes within the organization. Now, the difficulty with this is that those broken processes may well be in different parts of the organization. So it could be, you're dealing with product issues, it could be dealing with your service delivery issues, and that's really about starting to identify where the processes are and where they're broken, and starting to build teams on how to deal with that. One of the things that in contact centers we become very reliant on is the ACD stats. And the difficulty with the ACD stats is they typically focus on speed and not on quality. So one of the areas in the call center, a lot of people are driven by things like service level. We measure the percentage of calls that are answered within 20 seconds. And quite often people will put the service level or the average wait time or the number of calls in queue up on wall boards around the contact center. And consciously or unconsciously, this actually sends a message to your call center agents to get off the call to answer the next call in queue. Effectively, what it's trying to do is to increase the service level, improve the service level statistics, but at the expense potentially at solving the problem on the call. So I think it's time to maybe not ditch the ACD stats, but certainly decrease our reliance on them. I think it's true to say that if you can also help to turn agents into customer advocates, things will get a lot easier. We've talked a lot about empowerment of agents, but it does really become quite key. And in a large number of circumstances, you've seen things like where you allow agents to offer compensation to customers. The actual amounts of compensation that are offered are not as much as you would actually potentially think, because people are able to deal with problems, nip them in the bud, and I think the agents can also identify when someone's taking the Mickey and where not. Another area is in answering emails quickly. Quite often people nowadays expect an answer to come back to an email within, say, a period of about an hour. And I see an awful lot of people, a lot of call centres who have got, for instance, a 24-hour email service or a same-day email response. Really, these days that is getting too late. If you hold back on answering your emails, that will just result in more calls into the call centre. So answer your emails as quickly as you can, and that would also start to help bring down call volumes. We talked about processes being broken across the organisation, and one of the classic ones is in marketing campaigns. Quite often the first thing you'll know about a new marketing campaign is when the call volumes start to drive up within the contact centre. So if there's one area of the organisation to go off and work more closely with, I would suggest it be well worth building links with marketing. Now there are two technology areas that potentially can help with first call resolution. One is speech analytics. We did a webinar on this 2 months ago. Very, very exciting technology area because it enables you to pinpoint and actually to quantify the number of times that a service problem is happening. So you can quantify and build business cases based on knowing how often a particular problem arrives. The other area, and we had a webinar on this, strangely enough, 1 month ago, is business improvement software or process improvement software. And this really has some sort of great benefits in being able to automate mapping out your business processes and identify where there are some areas going wrong and start to automate that whole process. So those are sort of the overall areas. The difficulty with all of this is you end up with a wish list as long as your arm, and so the difficulty is, how do we, with so many potentially initiatives that spin out of this, how do we really start to get some sanity into the program? And really, as with most things in life, I think it really comes down to prioritizing and working out what your 3 key initiatives are going to be, and those really should either be the quick wins, or certainly those that have the biggest impact on the contact center. So really start to home in on those 3 areas. And I think really the key is to get some quick wins under your belt. Get some quick wins, a few areas where you've been able to improve things. It's a good chance to pull your team together, go out perhaps for a celebration to congratulate yourselves on having made a bit of a difference, and then you can start then to go off and work down that wish list. So that's my 15 tips to improve first call resolution.